So later tonight is, of course, SummerSlam. But a bit of a fun fact for everybody. I went over to Mavens' channel. If anybody doesn't remember the Maven, I think he won the first Tough Enough back in 2001. They debuted him around the main roster, eliminating The Undertaker. Got one of an upper mid-card push. Had a bit of a tenure that ended around 2005 with the WWE. And now I think he's teaching wrestling. Has his own YouTube channel called Maven Huffman. Goes over his history, best guys to work with, and he went over his pay grade with the WWE and accumulated, and you'll be shocked. And usually it's over the testament of the wrestlers keeping themselves fed, keeping themselves housed whenever they're over in a hotel, whenever they're traveling, and usually majority of that 42% is taxed off over from the USA. So of course you got your annual tax, including something called a pay slip, and this is around the span of 2004. I don't know the financial dilemmas. Possibly WWE superstars are getting paid a lot more, or at least getting a lot more coveted, because of course we know Ryback had some issues or financial issues involving his stick with the company. I think there was more into it, but we know he was issued with some expenses, or you guys want to go further over to super crazy. But Maven was above that line, that he was a mid-carder, so he was really more reliant over on pay-per-view slips, getting in major storylines, and Maven was in major storylines. He had a good build back in the day when, WWE actually had higher standards of physique, that you actually had to look like a star, unlike right now that even Kevin Owens looking the way he is, looking like goddamn Canadian Rosie, that all he has to do is pull up with a shirt and some shorts and some boots, and he's a higher star than fucking Austin Theory and LA Knight. And apparently Maven was feuding with Chris Jericho, Shelton Benjamin, Randy Orton, Evolution, The Undertaker after he costed him his shot in the Rumble, and he kept pummeling him every episode of SmackDown and Raw. I guess some injuries piled up. I know he had a hamstring injury, or he had some injury issues, that he wasn't getting that annual pay, that he was going over the most successful year, that I think possibly 2004. Because I think that was the most active I've seen him on Raw. He had his own gear, he had a catchy theme song, and he was in the most storylines, especially later around 2004 when they had that Survivor Series match. And I heard he made over $400,000. Bro, you're still taxed off half of that annual cash. And around that time when WWE stars were possibly getting paid after match, and they weren't overly reliant, I think there's more contractual obligations that had to appear over a span of an episode than you are right now. And that's interesting to go by, how things were worked back in the day with the whole pay slips. I don't know if that's still in commission today, but that's interesting. And they even had to be paid off of royalties, like DVDs back in the day, like possibly if they had Life of Maven in the WWE over on Walmart. That doesn't sell off anymore because, of course, streaming services, and now WWE Network was a thing, and Peacock, action figures, video games. So that's the sentiment of royalties. I guess he'll get that if he gets a vignette or some reference in a documentary, and he'll get paid over royalties of that. And he came from getting at least $5,000 to at least $300. That's tough. But at least he's still getting a bit of a pay grade for his likeness. And I guess that's the royalties that come out of all that, involving what you can get by your name still being part of the WWE license. And yeah, that's at least an interesting fact that you get from at least being part of at least not the upper echelon, but at least mid card. You're making like a livable wage. So imagine how Miz was, lack of injuries, always in storylines, been pushed in upper level and then mid tier storylines. He's possibly making more than a guy that's already getting pushed right now. So that's the span of what you can do just as Maven. Just imagine if he had a tenure in the WWE, he'd be living a more comfortable life than he possibly is right now. And he probably did something smart with his money. And we could say this to a bunch of WWE stars. You know, they're wearing Jordans. They're always wearing more flashier outfits, but they're still wearing just jobber clothes. You know, just not looking the part, or they're just not making, smart investments with their money. So that could be possibly a lot of ways that WWE has to span out your career when you're already paying for travel, taxes. If you're paying to live somewhere, health insurance, a savings account, and you gotta get that shit taxed off, and you still gotta pay for somewhere to rent a vehicle as well, because of course you're gonna be on the road. So, yeah, that's some tough type shit. I'm not gonna lie. It's still hefty. So, I guess if you want to live a more where finances are a bit more comfortable, it'd be more, I guess, beneficial to be over in the upper echelon card, or be a little more restricting with your expenses over any type of business. And just getting this fact from a guy that I watched from my childhood, because I remember Maven, shockingly. I remember the feud with Schnitzky he had. I remember when he was when Eric Bischoff was off, and Evolution and the rest of, and 4 guys from the Raw roster had to fight for their shot to run Raw for the next couple weeks until Bischoff came back around December, when he feuded with The Undertaker. I think he feuded with Kane and Chris Jericho. Maybe The Rock. He was in some memorable tag team feuds. So this guy was involved in a lot of stuff. They really tried to at least push some type of motor over to Maven, but some shit doesn't work out, and creative gotta work in a percentage of how you're gonna be treated on the roster, or at least what you can do, because it's still technically improv in pro wrestling. It's still a performance at the end of the day, as much as people want to try to make it a sport. But besides that, interesting fact. Shout outs to Maven and his YouTube channel. I'll try to get it in the description. And I hope he's living comfortably. This was an interesting video. I'll try to put a link over for the video. Thanks for watching the DST show. Like, comment, subscribe for more. That's it for me.